Hi everyone, my name is Josiah Lishan Rabindranath. Welcome to my first ever take on a podcast. I am here with Daniel Lee. He's a great friend and is also a current fencing athlete. And as you can see, he's in a wheelchair. He's a Paralympic athlete. So maybe Daniel, before we start, why don't you just introduce yourself a little bit to those who haven't heard of you before yet. I'll introduce myself as well after that.
Yep. Hi everyone, my name is Daniel. I am currently training as a wheelchair fencer, aiming for the next Paralympic Games. Before this, I was a national sitting volleyball athlete for the national youth team. And then for a number of years, I was training as a wheelchair racer. Currently, I transitioned to wheelchair fencing about slightly over a year ago. I am a motivational speaker, an all-ability advocate, and a corporate trainer. What I do in the advocacy part is I promote the inclusion of people with disabilities through sports being one of the medium, but also in other activities.
Nice. Okay, so thanks Daniel so much for introducing yourself. As for myself, I do fencing as well. I've been fencing for a little over 10 years now, and I've been doing fencing my whole life basically. I could say I was 10 years old when I started, and I'm 22 years old this year. And I've competed in the national team, and I was currently in hiatus for a year ago after having an ACL meniscus injury. But now I'm back. I'm getting back into sports. And I think what I learned over my year of being in hiatus after not competing at the high level of sports, I learned about how as athletes there is sometimes a battle that people don't see, which is so much more deeper in context and so much more deeper in even in biblical truth. There's so much of context to it. So maybe let me just ask you, Daniel, as a start, what does a quiet battle mean to you as an athlete?
Well, immediately I think of challenges that people don't see from the surface as an athlete. For example, in my context, just the idea and the act of being an athlete itself is a challenge for me. I was born with a condition called Osteogenesis Imperfecta, which basically means brittle bones. So I break bones easily. So as a kid, when you run around, you fall down, that's pretty normal for a kid. For me, every time I fell, I broke a bone. And I've lost count a long time ago how many times I've experienced a fracture. But if I have to estimate, it's anywhere between 30 to 50 times. And so just the idea of doing sports and now in fencing, a combat sport itself, is a challenge that a lot of people don't really imagine me having. So that means just the way I train would be different, the kind of intensity I may have, the kind of concerns I may have training as an athlete will be different from another Paralympic wheelchair fencer.
I see. Okay, all right. So maybe just let me try and explain this in a context. I really appreciate your point, but I think in a sentence, what you would agree with me on this is the real opponent is ourselves in a quiet battle. I think that is the baseline of people when people say a quiet battle, because it's actually challenging yourself to be better. Because if your focus is only to beat other people, you don't realize what you're doing for yourself.
Yep.
So maybe why don't you take us through how do you prepare yourself as an athlete? How do you prepare yourself as an athlete? Whether it's the physical aspect, the mental, maybe even the spiritual part of your life as well. Do you pray, your devotion time? How do you prepare yourself for that battle?
Yeah, I think, like I say, because of the nature of my condition, the decision to be an athlete itself is a huge decision that I have to make.
Yeah.
And so for a long time, I always ask God, as in, what is His purpose for me, right? So I think finding the purpose to doing what we do or doing what I do is the most important part. For me, I started my journey as an athlete only later on in life, so after I graduated from college, so slightly older than you. That was my beginning as an athlete, whereas you started as an athlete way younger. And so for me, preparing for that was just really asking God where He wants me to go and how He wants to use me, right? So because I think a lot of athletes may go into the sport because of their own passion and their goals. I have that too. But I think for me, the main thing is understanding what God's purpose is for me in that area. So I think that's the first step, to pray and to ask God, why do you want me here? What purpose do I serve in this arena? And then in the physical aspect is to prepare for it. So my first step into sports as an athlete was me doing my first wheelchair run, 10 km, and then later on I did marathons and ultra 100 km as well. And so physicality, finding the right coach to coach me in the beginning so that I don't injure myself in the gym. Right. So I think that is very similar to having a mentor, a spiritual mentor in life as well. And of course, the physical aspect is learning the skill and being good at what you do.
That's right. That's absolutely true. And I totally agree with you on having a good coach and having a good mentor, because it's true that they always say you have to work hard, you have to put in the effort on your own, but you need the right guidance and you need the right people to be there to help you, especially when it's training and especially when you're at a peak season, when you're like training for whether it's SEA Games, Asian Games, Olympics, etc. And I think what people have to understand first as a quiet battle in what, from my experience, is that sometimes victory is rarely won on the spotlight. I think it's more on just when you are younger, you first think, I can't wait to go competition because I want to win, I want to be able to do this and that and this and that. But when you grow older, when you mature and you realize as an athlete and as just as a person, the hard work and all the efforts actually come in training. And it's actually at times when people don't see you do the work. So maybe for you, do you do the extra work that when people don't see, and how do you feel when you do that extra work? Because some people, I'm going to be quite honest, even for myself, doing that extra work can become very monotonous because you're doing it on your own. Nobody's there to sort of validate the work that you do. So how do you feel when you go forth to do that, and what anchors you to do that? What drives you?
Well, I don't know about some people who loves fitness and loves training, they can't go a day without training, right? So for me, I think naturally, I wouldn't say I'm a person who loves training. So if I can choose to not do anything, sometimes I would prefer that, right? But I think as an athlete, it's important to not just do something simply because you enjoy it, right? So it's about committing to something and finding a purpose to achieving something or doing something. So for me, it's not the most exciting thing to train at home, to go to the gym when I don't have to be in the training itself. But I do it simply because I think it's necessary. And then over time, I do get used to it, right? So I probably feel a sense of achievement when I suddenly could do 50 push-ups with half the effort, perceived effort, right? And that is some sort of gratification. But really, for me, it is about finding a reason why and sticking with that goal in mind and disciplining myself, right?
That's great. Speaking of routine, let's talk day in the life. So before you became a fencer, you mentioned you were a volleyball athlete, right? You played volleyball. And maybe just talk us through, what did a day in a life look like for you as preparation? Because I think there's a stereotype where athletes do nothing but eat, sleep, train, which is to an extent true. Yes, I think that there is a lot of truth to that. But what did it look like for you as a Christian and as an athlete at the same time? How does it differ for you?
Well, around the time that I was a sitting volleyball player, I was also doing long distance marathons with my wheelchair. So my training was a bit different. Wasn't purely just the volleyball aspect. It starts off, I think for me specifically, there's quite a bit of traveling. So I have to start my day planning for how I need to get to the training spot in time, and because I don't drive, so I have to take public transport. That time I was training in PLPP Bangi.
Okay.
So I had to take a couple of trains and then a Grab to transition there. So it takes about an hour and a half or so from where I stay to there,
Right.
and then an hour and a half back. So of course, I find the benefit of having sort of a process, right? You wake up, you have your breakfast, then you do your basic whatever that you need to settle for the day. Then immediately I was planning for going for training already, and when I go to training, after that I have to head back. Once I head back, then I have to do my work, because at that point in time I was already working. I was working with a flexible timing, that's why it's easier, but there are a lot of in-betweens where I have to manage time and all the other things I'm juggling at the same time as a person who's working and as an athlete. I think in terms of the rest of the day in life, on the days that I'm not going for the main sport training, so I train 2 to 3 times a week for the specific sport. Even right now as a wheelchair fencer, I train 2 to 3 times a week specific to the sport. Other days, then I will have my own program at home. I've had the privilege to have a few friends of mine who were trainers who designed a program for me. So those are the programs that I use and modify over the years. 2 to 3 days other than the main training days in the week where I run my own program at home. I have a simple weighted gym, weighted vest. I have a battling rope. A battling rope is the one that you know.
The heavy ones.
Yeah,
There you go.
it looks easy, but it's torture.
It's torture.
But I think the day in the life for me isn't just training. So I travel a lot for work. So there are times where I travel overseas, but a lot of times I travel within the area for meetings and all those. So it is a bit tough on certain weeks and months where I have more appointments and work. So I do, like I said, I do motivational speaking. I do a lot of community engagement work with people with disabilities. So on the days that I have more meetings outside where I couldn't go to the gym and whatnot, I try to put in my pushes. So even just going from my house to the LRT, for example, if it's not rainy and whatnot, I add in a 1.2 kilometer push to the LRT instead, right? Or from meeting place to meeting place, I try to keep them within the area. So for example, I'm always in KLCC, and sometimes I decide to, after my meeting, to have lunch in Pavilion.
Alright.
And that's like I don't know how many kilometers there, probably a couple of kilometers push. So for me, that is a good, fun exercise. So I try to keep myself active in between my training days and my work and my community engagement works. Yeah.
So actually, when you're sharing all this on you having to get that extra push, there's actually no one telling you to go and do that extra push. It's your own conviction to go and do it yourself. And why did you think that was important? Having that your own conviction, like I want to make this fun, I want to do this extra work. Why do you think you had that, and maybe some other wheelchair athletes didn't want to do that?
Like I say, it always goes back to purpose, right? So if your purpose of doing whatever you do is just to enjoy yourself, then obviously not many people enjoy training, right? For me, I realize that I do have a lot of responsibilities and roles right now. I volunteer for at least 3 other organizations, and then I have my job, my own company, and then training. And so with that in mind, I still need to remember my purpose as an athlete. And just because the days are busy and I may not always get to even come to training, because sometimes it just clashes, I figure that I need to find a way to still keep to that goal. My dream is to one day reach the Paralympics. That's my dream, my goal. It's a personal passion and dream, but also I think it is a purpose that I think God has put in my heart. Because once I reach the Paralympics, I think the kind of impact I can have when I work within the communities would be bigger.
Right.
And so I have that in mind, knowing that the days that I don't train could be an off day, but really I want to make the most out of it.
That's great. That's I think the baseline for any athlete who wants to be better, based off just what you've shared, which is great. I think the baseline is that there has to be a very deep conviction.
Yeah.
I think doing things for the sake of doing it is not going to get you anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do it because, not just because you want to do it, but and not just because you love it, but because you have a purpose to achieve.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you have an end goal. It's like, why do I take part in a competition?
Yeah.
And the baseline of wanting to take part in a competition is because I want to win.
Mm.
But why do I want to win? I think that is the kind of question we must ask ourselves, because when we have that deep and personal conviction, it makes us train even harder. It makes us want to do the extra work. And we don't even, I think, for yourself, do you ever feel that you need to be validated as an athlete? Because sometimes I feel that I would like to, it's nice to be in that spotlight. But for yourself, do you feel that it is nice to be you should be validated?
I think naturally as a human being, there's intrinsic desire to be recognized for what you do, right?
Yeah.
And so, and I think it's just basic human motivation as well. So as you see a kid learn something, and then if your parents encourage you and they do something good, they cheer for them, the kid tends to want to do it more,
Yes.
right? So I think athletes, if you think from the perspective of a coach, that's where you encourage your athletes, right? Say, great job, things to improve on, and all those. You don't want to say that, okay, it doesn't matter at all, so I can just put down my athletes, because you don't want them to have recognition. So I think naturally the human nature wants it. I think the difference for me is that natural human desire doesn't equal to what God wants for me, right? So meaning, yes, when I train as an athlete, it feels good when people say, oh yeah, you are improving. Or when I go for competitions, maybe I win some medals or whatever, right?
Yeah.
I think to a certain extent it is a marker for the milestone I'm going through, meaning, oh yeah, I'm actually improving maybe. But to persevere even when I don't get that is the most important. Why? It goes back to the purpose, and it reminds me of Paul saying in his epistles, he runs and trains as if to win the prize, right?
Yeah.
So I think to every athlete that prize may be different. To a lot of athletes it will be a gold medal or the Paralympics or the Olympics. For me, yes, that is great, but really that prize for me is his purpose for me at the end, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I believe God wants to use me to impact the world around me and beyond, and that people would know Him through me. And so I see that as the measure as to when I go for competition. So sorry, I'm speaking a lot, but
no,
really it reminds me of this time where I played for the Asian Youth Paralympics Games in sitting volleyball.
Okay.
And the Malaysian team was probably the weakest there. We were the host country as well, but we have other countries like Iran, who is like world number 1, number 2, Kazakhstan and Iraq, who are all at least regional level. And because Malaysia is the weakest there, I think some of the athletes and the captain of my team figured a strategy to get the most advantage, right?
Yeah.
So if you can't win them physically, you win them mentally. And so their tactic was to boo them when they make any kind of mistake. So the opponent team making a small mistake, we were asked to boo them and like make fun of them so that we get a psychological advantage of sorts. If my goal, my prize is the medal or winning or purely just that, then yeah, it would make sense to do whatever it takes to win, right?
Yeah.
But my prize is not just the physical things, but really to be a testimony for Him, to fulfill His purpose for me. And so I abstain and I refuse to do that. I discouraged my teammates from doing it. Look at my coach wasn't really doing anything about it. But I actively excluded myself from that. It felt like I was probably excluding myself from the team, but I felt that was the right thing to do. And at the end of the tournament, Malaysia was last, but one of the referees came over and said, "Hey, you are Daniel, right? There's something different about your spirit. Keep it up. I'd like to see you again."
Wow.
Right? And I did not utter a single word about God or the Holy Spirit, but people can recognize the kind of spirit you carry.
Yeah, I think you carry a different light when you allow the presence of God to go before you. I think, and I mean, when you mentioned the whole aspect when they were trying to boo the other teams, when you said psychological effect, I think that having the psychological effect works. I think there's nothing wrong with trying to play. I mean, like Suits. Harvey Specter will say, "Don't play the odds, play the man," which I totally agree. Sometimes you have, before the battle of the fist comes that battle of the mind first. But I think bullying in sports, in that sense, especially that booing, that psychological effect, can be achieved in many ways.
Yeah, I think you can use a lot of psychological advantages and whatnot. I used to play chess at a state level.
Yes.
And then one of the tactics that some chess players would use, you see some, as of right now, one of the best, if not the best chess player in the world, arguably in the century that people say, is Magnus Carlsen. He's always late. Like he will come late to a 5-minute game or a 10-minute game, and when he reaches late, he will still take his own time to arrange his pieces. I think that is a psychological advantage where it makes your opponent, it puts your opponent in tremendous pressure.
Yeah.
Because it shows that he's so confident, he doesn't mind being late. I think psychological advantages like that is great. I think unsportsmanlike behavior is a totally different thing. So booing and all those, it's not sportsmanlike behavior. That's why.
So Magnus Carlsen will walk around. So in your case, if you wanted to play psychological, you have to just roll your wheelchair around. If you wanted to play psychological,
I think I do things a bit differently. I think because of my personality. So I like to. I like the approach of being calm, assertive. In chess, I sit down. I don't really move around. I've forced a player who likes to do that to sit down fully in a game with me. I think it all depends on your personality and your approach. I think in fencing, a lot of people tell your athletes to shout, get the
which is
up, right?
It's not a common thing, but it's normal.
Yeah,
it's normal. People see like, oh, he shouts. Okay, that's nothing new.
So I think some I've been told that, or even when I was training, they say, oh, you need to shout to increase your spirit. I think if it works for you psychologically, do that. For me, it's just because of my personality and my preferences. I like that appearance, and my personality goes with the whole calm, assertive thing. So I can imagine me shouting at some point, but I probably wouldn't be doing a lot of that. Why? Because I think psychologically, I prefer imagine my opponent fighting me, an opponent who is unmovable. Right?
Calm assertive.
Yeah. So you could push as hard as you can, it doesn't affect me. I think that's my way of doing it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's a preference, and it's also to the personality of the person. Some people like to dominate by shouting, by getting like, not to say rough, but a little bit more like stand strong, kind of fierce. Some people like to just keep it calm and assertive. Yeah. Some people don't even do any of those things, and they just command that attention. Yeah. Which is, I think, again, it's just the person, it's the personality, and I think it doesn't matter how you do it, but taunting and bullying and unsportsmanlike coming into that is of course wrong.
Yeah. I think it sort of just gets me thinking about certain style. Like I think when people share about God, right, there's many styles. So there are people who like the intellectual aspect of things, so they explain things intellectually. There are people who like to have a personal touch and showing love through actions. there are people who use us encouraging words and wisdom and all those. So I think for me, it's like that kind of style as an athlete. You have to find your own way and your way to play the game and be the athlete that you want to be.
Yeah. And I think whatever you said actually comes back to that quiet battle, because we may not like what the opponent or what the other teams may do, but that does not change the fact that we also become like them. You know, people can be taunting, people can play with our mental game, play with our emotional, but again, with whatever you believe in, whatever your faith is, I think standing firm in that conviction, you know, this is my purpose, this is how I'm meant to be. I think that is the whole idea of the quiet battle. It is first, not even actually even the mental part, it is first the spiritual. I think when you are first spiritually rooted in what you do, you know, you believe in what you do and you believe that there is a greater good that can come for this, I think that you will be different and you will stand out, which is part of the battle you face as an athlete, and it's part of the things that people don't see.
Yeah, I think we all struggle with our challenges, and so a lot of the things that people don't see goes beyond just the training aspect, right?
Yeah.
Even physicality wise, you never really know if someone is facing an injury, right? And how does that affect their mental state? And you know, I think that's why a lot of times when people look at an athlete, they judge an athlete purely on the physicality or the performance aspect, right?
Yep.
So I've had a couple of times where it's probably a down season for me. I probably was struggling with juggling all the different things, and maybe I wasn't at my best health and I wasn't training as much. And so I got skinnier, right?
Yeah.
And there are times where people like put on my Instagram, so it's just a random video of me, someone celebrating my birthday, right?
Yeah.
And they say, "Where are all your muscles?" Right? And I choose to ignore them. I don't entertain those kind of questions, because I think I think social media has conditioned us to judge someone on a surface level, right? So when you see an athlete not looking like an athlete, then they will, you know, make fun of them.
Yeah.
Or we don't know what struggle they are facing, right? So it gives me the perspective of you know, a different perspective of compassion. When I look at an athlete and the things that we see on social media, there are a lot of times people will paint an athlete a certain way simply because they want something or they struggle with something. And as people on social media, it's easy to make fun.
It's like what any coach, a good coach will tell you. An athlete will never judge any other person for working out, because they know what it means. They know what it means, and irregardless of what your conviction is, they don't judge you on it.
Yeah.
Which is important. Yeah. Well, great. I think this is a very deep topic, quiet battle, and I think it can go even deeper. But I think we've covered everything we wanted to share. And Daniel, thank you so much for sharing your perspective and sharing your point as a Paralympic athlete. There's more to come definitely from this today. I think this is an exciting approach to life as an athlete, to just being in general. Well, maybe before we end off this recording, maybe can I ask Daniel, why don't you share with everyone what is a memory verse for you from the Bible, or any quote or something that keeps you motivated or keeps you persistent in what you do?
One of my favorite psalm is when it says, "Your word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path." It's one of my favorite psalms because it reminds me that there are a lot of times I don't really know what's in front of me. Right? I think the temptation is to start running in the dark, right? But God, when God tells us to have faith in Him, it's not about running blindfolded. But it's to run with His word shining in front of us like a lamp.
Right.
And if you have a lamp, you can only see 2-3 steps ahead of you. This is the old school lamp.
The
current nowadays, you know.
Not
LED.
your flashlight that you go all the way.
So we can only see 3 steps ahead of us, right? And all we need to do is not run, but to walk. And as we walk those 2-3 steps, we see 2-3 more steps, and before we know it, we get out of the darkness. I think it reassures me that we don't really always know God's plan for all of us, We have the faith that the plan is to prosper us, not to harm us, a plan to give us hope and a future. And I believe God has that plan for me. And so all I need to do is just to walk within His Word, shining away. And that's how I get to the end. And I hope that at the end, God will say, well done, good and faithful servant.
Nice, that's great. I think maybe since you shared I'll just share mine as well very quickly. I have two in particular, and it's actually my dad always sends these messages to me every morning. So wherever I go in general, he always sends me Joshua 1 verse 9. Have I not commanded you to be strong and courageous? I think that as athletes, or just even people in general, we fight battles nobody will ever be able to fully understand or empathize with. But being strong and courageous, and then the verse goes on to say to take heart and wait for the Lord. I think really, again, like the lamp that is light unto my path, I think that you have to be very courageous and strong in what you do. Strong, not just physical, I'm not talking physical, but the spiritual, mental, because everything we do flows from the spiritual, which is something I'm still trying to learn and grasp on. But I think that that is the truth of spirituality. And my other one is very straightforward, Philippians 4 verse 13, which is one of my favorite verses until today, which is I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So those are my two verses, and I think it has anchored me throughout my life as a person. So that's my two verses.
Awesome.
Thanks, man. Again, thank you so much, Daniel. We really appreciate it. There'll be more to come from this, definitely. I think this was a fun one. Thank you so much, Daniel. Really appreciate it. And we'll catch you guys in the next one.